if you have at all been active within the gaming scene, you probably would have seen Multiversus come up. If you don't know what Multiversus is, it's basically Warner Bros.' version of Super Smash Bros. And if you don't know what Super Smash Bros. Is, God help you. This game came out in open beta back in 2022 but shut down soon afterwards, but now, as of today, it's actually come back into the limelight with a brand new relaunch of the game, featuring characters like the Joker and even Jason Voorhees, funnily enough. The mission statement of Multiversus is to bring some of the most iconic characters under Warner Bros.' umbrella and pit them against each other, a la Super Smash Bros. So that begs the question, could third-party characters such as Godzilla make an appearance? Today's video is basically about Godzilla's chances being in Multiversus. Now, if you're anything like me, you would have heard that Godzilla was somewhat referenced in the files of Multiversus. Some attacks linked to a certain character were quite similar to what he would do, like stomping and atomic breath, but I'm going to ignore that for the purpose of this video, as it's highly likely that those plans have been put at least into limbo, or maybe even scrapped entirely. So let's just start from square one about Godzilla's chances in Multiversus to see if he has a shot. Let's get the obvious statement out of the way. Warner Bros. Themselves don't own Godzilla. Sure, they collaborate with Legendary Pictures on the Monsterverse films, but we also have to take a look at Legendary's rights with Godzilla. They don't own him either. Toho owned Godzilla, which, yeah, I know it's pretty obvious, but for newcomers to this franchise, I think that's pretty important to get out of the way. So Warner Bros. Don't own Godzilla, but does he have a shot at coming into Multiversus? It's entirely possible. The game's director Tony Hugh, in an interview back in 2022, talked about the possibility of third-party characters like Walter White. He mentioned that as they're not owned by Warner Bros, it's quite tricky to get a hold of these characters, but he does try and make an effort to get in touch with the license holders to see if there's a possibility of having these characters in the game. So that does increase Godzilla's chances because he is a quite heavily requested character. So that would mean that the developers would put in the extra leg room to get him in the game, as they know that he's a character that a lot of people would be dying to see. Additionally, as there's a direct connection between Toho and Warner Bros. As they somewhat collaborate on the Monsterverse films, they do have some form of a working relationship, so getting a hold of Toho isn't exactly difficult for Warner Bros. Because they have a working relationship with them. But that comes up to the next hurdle in this discussion, Toho themselves. Sure, Toho have been quite relaxed with Godzilla in games as of late, with Godzilla cropping up in games like Giga Bash, Minecraft, Call of Duty, which is a dramatic change for the company. For the best part of Godzilla's history, Toho have been very protective over the character, not really allowing him to cross over into much media, so this is a welcome change, and does increase Godzilla's chances of being in Multiversus, as Toho seem quite interested in putting the King of the Monsters in as many games as possible to maximise his exposure and, of course, revenue sources. But then, the big elephant in the room, the license fee. As Godzilla is one of the most popular fictional characters in the world, and he's quite hot on the press at the moment with the recent success of -1 winning an Oscar and The New Empire roaring to success at the box office, he's literally at his most popular that he's ever been, which could mean that a lot of companies are looking to monetize that success of Godzilla and reach out to Toho in order to get the license fee to put Godzilla in our own projects, Multiversus included. But as Toho seems to be quite a smart company, they would jack up the price of the Godzilla license fee so that these companies would have to pay an exorbitant amount of money in order to get the King of the Monsters in their projects. Which, is it a bit unfair? Sure, but is it justified? I'd say so. If you don't believe me about the licensing fees, just look up the toy companies that have the Godzilla license, like Higher Toys or Bandai for SH Monster Arts. I know this is a bit of a tangent, but stick with me here. The reason why their Godzilla molds keep getting repainted and resculpted over and over again to keep selling them is that the license fee is quite expensive, so they have to make their money back on reselling these molds over and over again so they can buy new molds to make more characters. So essentially it's the fact that Godzilla takes a lot of money away from them, but also puts it in their pockets. But let's also address the big elephant in the room, or should I say, big grey ape. I personally think King Kong is much more likely to be in Multiversus. For one, there's not as many legal headaches to get him in the game as Godzilla. Sure, Kong's rights are a mess, and that's a topic for another day, but Warner Bros. Seem to have some form of rights over him. He was featured in Ready Player One and Space Jam 2, so it does seem quite likely that they own some part of the King Kong character that they can use freely. But in an ideal world, I'd love to have both of them in the game. Honestly, that would be so cool to have Godzilla and King Kong in a Super Smash Bros. Type fighting game. So let's just wrap this video up with the final statement of how likely is Godzilla to be in Multiversus. Honestly, I'd say he has a better chance than most third-party characters would ever have. There's already a working relationship with Warner Bros. That can be exploited to get him into the game. Toho have loosened up on where they use the character, especially in video games, and they seem quite keen to put him in free-to-play games or heavily popular games, and Multiversus does fit that bill. And also, he would fit so perfectly. And also, he'd be a massive get for Multiversus. Imagine if he gets in the game, that'll put a lot of eyeballs on the game and show people that Multiversus is a game worth paying attention to, as they're able to get one of the most iconic fictional characters of all time into the game that they don't even own. So that would increase the chances of other third-party characters getting in the game if Godzilla gets in first. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video just to ramble about two things I quite like, Multiversus and Godzilla. Honestly, if Godzilla gets in the game, I will be maining him like no tomorrow, even if he's the worst character in the game. See ya!